Great morning, business owners and managers. Wes Walters here, and welcome to another awesome episode of CX in the Morning, customer experience in the morning. On every single CX in the morning, I bless you with customer service tips, customer experience tricks, and I leave you with gems. And by gems, you know what I mean, actionable takeaways that you can implement at the speed of now. Immediately after this broadcast, you can take what you've learned, sharing it with your team and your business, making your team and your business better. And who doesn't want to be better? So welcome, guys. By now you have seen the Kiss Cam situation. And a lot of you have been messaging me. Thank you for messaging me, Mr. Walters. Please address this, Mr. Walters. Please. All right. I said I wouldn't address it unless it was from a business point of view and if it was used as a teaching opportunity. And that's why, and that's how I'm going to address it. Most of the commentary, the social commentary has pretty much been gossip, and shaming her, shaming him, shaming the company. And that's just gossip. That's just the noise. Just the noise. We don't want so much noise. We want to tune in and extract the gems, because there's gems littered all through this situation. So I said I was not going to address it unless it was from a business point of view. And because the person, one of the people involved is connected, is the head of HR. Could you believe this? Yes. God bless her soul. And if you're in the South, you know, when someone tells you, God bless her soul, you know what that means, right? So God bless her soul. God bless her heart. The head of HR. God bless her heart. Anyone from the South know what that means. But anyway, I said I wasn't going to address this issue unless I had someone who has the experience of dealing with situations like this. And today, for your enjoyment, I have an HR guru. Yeah, and I use that word intentionally, a guru with over 20 years of experience to add her ear and her insight into the situation, because she's going to highlight things that we don't see. And that's why I always have guests on the show who are smarter than me, who are filling in the gaps where I am lacking. And by far, Sheryl is the best person for this interview. All right, great. So with a topic like this, of course, like I said, I would only do a topic like this. I would only address a topic like this unless I had the expertise of someone who is not only in HR, but constantly sees situations like this. And she advises others how to, I guess, get back on the tracks. Sheryl, welcome. How are you?
I am great. Thank you for having me, Wes. I really appreciate the opportunity to help you out here.
Man, it's a pleasure having you here. And let's jump right in. So before we even begin, Sheryl, with your 20 years of experience, you've been doing this for quite some time. When an incident like the Kiss Cam scenario involving leaders, senior leaders at Astronomer broke, there was a lot of buzz around HR. HR was buzzing, and immediately I thought about you. So before we even dive into that particular situation, let's take a more comprehensive look at HR for a minute. Reflecting on your 20 years of HR experience, you've witnessed shifts, the pendulum this way and the pendulum back this way in the workplace, from technology to workplace demographics. What is the single biggest transformation that you've seen in HR within this last 20 years?
Well, just so you know, Wes, I'm only claiming 20 for the record.
Okay.
Single transformation in HR. Let's see, there's been a lot of changes in the HR arena. Everything from work from home issues, return to the workplace, the explosion of social media's impact on businesses, artificial intelligence, COVID-19 and how it inspired a lot of early retirements, the lower birth rates of the past not now catching up with us, and we have a smaller candidate pool, and so much more. But I would say the most meaningful an impactful change that I have seen is that companies are giving HR leadership a seat at the table now, at the strategic planning table. And this better allows HR professionals and leadership to more nimbly, I would say, and creatively approach the obstacles that the business may be facing and help them support the business with whatever the needs may be. Just having that seat at the table, I would say, is the biggest and most impactful change overall.
And what do you think brought about this change, or why now? Why is this a change? Why should HR be? And again, I'm all in support of it, but I want to know
Yeah.
what brought about this renaissance.
Well, I would say COVID-19 was very impactful because it was all about how to corral all your people resources under such a straining time. So that was the impetus for, quite a few companies, but also even the things like artificial intelligence, right? The way it's being used to create efficiencies also impacts the workforce. It doesn't necessarily mean downsizing or reduction in force. It may mean retooling your people. So having HR in the room to understand not only what the current business landscape looks like, but also understanding what the future needs and goals are so that they can take a more creative and nimble approach to solving those problems and preparing the workforce for the future and the plans of the organization.
Well, you know what I'm hearing as you were speaking, I'm hearing that hey, there's a shift taking place, and
Yes.
it would behoove HR to shift with or pivot with the shift. Well, what's one HR best practice? Best practice in quotes in your experience that looks great on paper. Like this thing is like black and white, it looks amazing, but falls short with real life implications, and why?
Yeah. I wish I could say there were one thing, but I'll say the one that I think has the most impact. It's really a good idea for a company to have a vision, right? What the future should look like and a mission. Like what problem are you solving? What service are you providing? And to whom are you providing those services? And then values that really define who you are, what your character is, the organization's character. So I would say the big problem, like where it falls short, is you have values on paper, but you don't actually live them out, right? There's a misalignment of the stated values and how people are actually carrying out their day-to-day decisions and choices and actions. So it leads to a plethora of negative outcomes. I recently worked with an organization where the senior leadership clearly stated that people were their most important assets. And I believe the senior leadership meant that, right? Wholeheartedly. That is what they wanted to be infiltrated throughout the organization. But the line management, the leadership in one region was not living that out at all. And employees were experiencing burnout, right? So when employees see like here's what the company is saying is this is what we're about and here's what I'm living and there's a misalignment, it leads to a lack of trust, right? Because you're not doing what you say, disgruntlement, a decrease in engagement. Like people are spending a lot of time talking about how disconnected, like, oh, they say this, but this isn't what my experience is as an employee in this organization, which could lead to increased turnover. When you have an increase in turnover now, that leads to even more burnout because fewer employees are available to serve your customers or your clients, and it takes a while to ramp up new hires. So the customers start to feel it, your clients start to feel it. And then potentially you might get some negative feedback on social media. There's so many platforms now for former employees and current employees to provide their input on your organization. So you have that exposure as well. And then it could impact your recruitment, right? Folks go on Glassdoor or Indeed to see what people are saying about you. And they may decide to choose your competitor over you because of the comments that they see. It just is a cycle, right, that impacts your employees, your customers, your clients. And the way to head it off, I would say, is that your senior leadership has to seek input from your frontline employees. And you can do this by client, customer service surveys, culture surveys, engagement surveys, maybe an exit interview. If you see people leaving, why are you leaving? They're more likely to be very honest with you if they're already on the way out the door. But you want to catch them before that happens. So you may do what we call stay interviews, like, why are you here? And what would keep you here? Or focus groups even, so that you can hear exactly what employees have to say. Now, this of course requires trust. So when you say it's confidential, it should be confidential. If it's anonymous, it should be anonymous. And then once the leadership receives that feedback, they have to demonstrate that they value the input. And that means acknowledging that people took the time out to provide feedback, and then connecting the dots. If you actually make adjustments, which I've seen happen, companies will make some meaningful adjustments in an organization in response to feedback, but they never tell employees that this is why they're doing it. So an employee may not know that the feedback they gave is what led to some of the changes they're seeing. So you want to be very intentional about communicating what you heard and what you're doing about it. And where you're unable to make changes, communicating that, right? Saying, hey, based on our current focus or the resources we have, here's what we're able to do and here's what we're not able to do. What you definitely don't want to do is excuse away bad behaviors or misalignments from your line management, from what the company is saying it's all about.
Ladies and gentlemen, I assure you, she has not read my book. And I promise you,
Not yet.
everyone's gonna be like, yeah, she read the book. She read the book. No. I assure you, because this is in a chapter I talk about where it's a concept I coined. Don't be an ask hole. Don't be an ask hole, where management would ask employees, hey, we value your feedback. We want your feedback. What do you
Yeah.
think about this? And then do whatever the heck they want to do anyway. Totally ignored.
Yeah.
And you made a great segue. You talked about social media, that big old hairy beast, social media. Let's take a deep dive into, the reason why you're here. You saw the Kiss Cam debacle. Let's take a deep dive into regarding this Kiss Cam incident, and the impact on that company. The individuals involved in this incident were senior leaders, Sheryl. When a scandal involving senior leadership becomes breaking news like this, what are the recommendations and immediate critical steps HR needs to do?
So I'll say the critical steps that need to be taken have to be taken well before you have a crisis to manage at all, right? If you wait until you have a crisis to start putting a plan together, it will be chaotic. It will miss some important components, and it may create more confusion. So this means you have to develop a disaster preparedness plan, a crisis management plan, a social media disaster management plan, because social media is here to stay, right? It's only
So
becoming
you're saying companies should have this on the books,
in place.
like a typical SOP. So when this
Yep.
happens, press one.
Yep.
Wow.
Absolutely. Well
Okay.
before there's anything to manage. That way, when the incident unfolds, whatever it may be, right? You always hope you never need it, right? But you have it in case you do need it. The company will just execute the plan that's already in place. If you wait for that crisis to occur, like I said, you're chaotic and scrambled. The messaging will be inconsistent and unclear, and there will be a lot of loss of confidence internally and externally. Potentially a decline in profitability, which, I'll share a little bit about. But like, for example, during COVID-19, most of the clients that I had that fared the best were those that had a disaster preparedness plan in place. So I'll make the recommendations. Not every CEO or every leadership team embraces it, but I'll tell you, the ones that did, they were ready to go, right? They already had plans in place. If businesses shut down, if our offices have to close, how do we get ramped up to continue our business and not let things fall through the cracks? So it's really critical, to have a sound business plan that is inclusive of crisis management, like just being prepared for the unexpected.
Okay. So let me ask you this, Cheryl. When your initial thought, when you saw what happened and you realize, one, this involved two individuals at the helm of the organization. One, second, one being in HR. What was your knee-jerk reaction? I'm talking about your reptilian brain reaction, not your skilled 20 years of experience. What was your knee-jerk reaction? What did you feel? Or are you even able to compartmentalize the two, being in for 20 years been doing this. Can you even compartmentalize it too? Can you?
Well, I'll say I had a few different reactions. The first being, even as an HR professional, we know that we're all imperfect humans, right? So on the human level, I felt some compassion, like, wow, this is really embarrassing. Um, on a professional level, HR is often seen as the culture police or the policy police. So knowing that HR was in that situation made it all the more glaringly complicated, if you will, in terms of the impact internally, especially. So their impacts internal as well as external, like if it's a publicly traded company, stockholder confidence may decline. A privately held company, investor confidence may decline. Your company valuation may decrease. Your public image is tarnished. You may have things on the horizon that you're working on, like, oh, we're about to expand internationally or scale our products. And now you have to shift all your focus and all your resources to crisis management and any potential changes in leadership or any other fallouts that might exist. Internally, you have employee morale and productivity. Imagine the buzz at work the next day,
Oh,
right? Like,
yes.
how
Yes.
much work did you think was getting done that day with this in social media? I even saw there were some social media like, hey, how was work today for folks in that organization? Again, I get that we're all imperfect humans, but if we're focusing on the business, these are the things that you have to consider. Um, Employee confidence declines. If you're engaged in talking about what happened, on social media, you're not engaged in your work, productivity declines. The workplace climate is entirely impacted. And there's a breakdown of internal trust, right? Employee morale, the potentially an impact on recruitment, because if a candidate is considering your organization, they're like, let me go over here to this stable company, your competitor, who is not having issues right now because there's all this instability in front of you. So there's a lot to consider. When HR is involved, like I said, all imperfect humans, but we're talking about the business. And being the policy police and the culture police, HR is the culture advocate who enforces policies, ensures that the company's values are being lived out. So it would be kind of hard to be effective in an HR capacity, holding others accountable if your own behavior and decisions for you and for other company leaders, if they are misaligned from the company's policies and values. It's an erosion of trust. It's not personal, but it's about protecting the company's brand internally and externally. And I will say, my counterparts in other countries, they believe American, the American perspective on this might be a little different. It's a non-issue to some people, right? But this is the society we're in. This is the country that this organization does business. And so we're talking about the impact for that company given that landscape.
So I'm assuming your European customers are saying, what's the big deal?
I'm not telling. I spoke to someone in Belize today, and they hadn't even heard of it.
You know what? It's funny because I have clients in the UK, and their response was, it was just a hug. What's the problem?
Right.
I was like, no, but
Yeah.
he was hugging. That wasn't his wife, and that wasn't a husband. And their response was, it was just a hug. What's the problem? I'm like, I need to move to the UK.
Yeah, culture definitely plays a role in how it is seen. But we know with American companies, when there's a scandal, if there's a big upheaval, if there's a change in top leadership, it does impact for publicly traded companies. It impacts stockholders' confidence. People start selling stocks because they're trying to protect their investments, their capital. If it's a privately held company, investors are hesitant to continue funneling funds in there. They may withdraw, withhold, or not fund things that they were considering funding going forward. So, yeah.
I totally get it. I totally get it. And we're going to get back to the crisis plan, but I want to say this. I want to interject this right here. Inject this and tell me what your response is to this. I feel, yes, all that you said is valid. People are going to be upset. Stocks are going to plummet. etc. You know, you're going to be the laughing stock of the employees. Employee churn might happen. New employees might not want to come. However, in the last, I'll say 20 years, just like you, we're going to use round numbers. What I've learned, or what I think I have a good assessment on, is that modern day people have an attention span of an ant. That, yes, it's going to affect stocks prices for 2 weeks. People are going to say it's the worst thing since sliced bread. And the minute they release a new public offering or something new and shiny and with glitter, it's like, that was 2 weeks ago. Let's move on. Is this really going to impact the company negatively a year from now? Are people going to be talking about this when this company, I mean, this evaluation was amazing? A year from now, are they still going to be hurting? Or what do you believe? Just a guess.
Well, I will say things are moving at lightning speed for sure, right?
Yeah.
But there are some companies whose names, if I were to call them, you will have an immediate association, positive or negative,
Mm-hmm.
right? Based on some scandal that happened in the past or some tragedy that happened in the past. So while there is a short attention span, and as a business, you're able to get past things. Sometimes the lingering stigma stays with you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think one of the things we had talked about is like, is all publicity good publicity, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
All publicity definitely increases brand awareness. People know the name astronomer now, for example, when many people didn't even know there was a company by that name in existence. In fact, I saw some social media posts where people are saying like, "Oh, I thought the guy was an astronomer." Like, right?
I saw
They
that too.
they
I
had
saw
no
that too.
idea, right? But good public relations, good publicity, like positive news, a new product launch, profitable earnings report, like those have a positive effect. It builds trust, it builds loyalty, it creates brand ambassadors, right? You might tell other people like, "Hey, this stock is doing good," or "I had a good experience here," or um, for people who find companies that align with their values, right? Like, oh, they leave a minimal footprint on the planet. So there are things that help to build brand loyalty, that create brand ambassadors organically. It creates opportunities to interact with your customers, just positive visibility. But bad PR, on the other hand, does the opposite. The things we've talked about, right? Eroding customer and investor trust, decreasing sales, declining in your brand value, eroding employee confidence, derailing plans and goals that you may have had on the immediate horizon that now you have to shift your focus. Potential clients or customers or job candidates may be deterred. And then sometimes, depending on the severity, you might have customer boycotts or
Mm.
long-term distrust.
Wow.
So while we are moving at lightning speed and people have short attention spans, sometimes that stigma lingers, but also the impact of it, the financial impact sometimes is hard to quantify because you may not be able to connect the dots of people's purchasing decisions to something that happened in the past, even though it has impacted their decisions.
Well said. Well said.
Um,
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go
yeah,
ahead.
and you can, no, I was just gonna say, you can mitigate some of this risk by like monitoring your brand, right? I encourage my business owners and C-suite to Google that company name and see what comes up. Google your own name, see what comes up. Google just do a search on your leadership and see what pops up. There may be things that you're unaware of and you have an opportunity to now address it, get things fixed. Ensure your policies are in alignment with the company values and the brand that you're trying to promote, and communicate the policies to employees. So often people get a handbook and they only look at it when they need an answer to a specific question, right? So if there are
Mhm.
things that are important to the company in your new company orientation, you want to make sure you highlight those things. These are our values. These are some important policies we want to make sure you're aware of. Yes, you may have a full handbook with, I don't know, 75, 100 pages, 50 pages, whatever it may be, but we want to highlight these because these really impact our company's brand. And then you can have a social media policy. Um, Social media is here to stay. And again, there's so many platforms to give and receive feedback. So some companies may have a policy that says we encourage the use of social media, but they provide some parameters around what they see as acceptable for employees to engage on social media that associates and affiliates with the company name. And then some companies say, like, don't mention us, right? Like, no press, please. We've got
Mhm.
this.
Yeah.
Um, Having an ethics or code of conduct policy that aligns with the company values, right? So this might outline standards of behavior, usually include things like honesty, integrity, respect for others, or accountability. Going back again to your first question, though, making sure that if these are your values, you're actually living them out as a company, right? Conflict of interest kind of identifies where your personal interest might conflict with professional duties. This is particularly key for your your senior leadership, right? Making sure that they understand that their public image, even as a private person, impacts the company's image as a business. So conflict of interest, even internally, like, okay, you know, a reporting relationship with your significant partner, right? That might be in there. And then outlining procedures to manage situations where there are violations of this or potential violations. So some companies say, hey, we don't necessarily have a blanket problem with nepotism, but we need you to identify it up front so we can make sure that the integrity of the organization and the business that we do is not compromised. And then also identifying what the disciplinary outcomes are if there are violations. Um, and then hold everyone, including your leadership, accountable for being aligned with those values, for living them out, for making sure they follow the policies. And then reviewing your plans and policies regularly so that you are ready to execute those plans and not wanting to basically apply those policies and consequences just to the folks that you don't get along with. They have to be policies and consequences that you're willing to apply equally, equitably amongst the entire workforce.
Excellent. Well, let's land this plane right now. First of all, that was a mouthful, Cheryl. Thank you so much for
It was
the
a lot.
insight. And that's why I brought you on here, because as an HR expert like yourself, you can see my blind spots. Those are things that I would never have been able to articulate. And I'm glad that you're here to share that with our team. Now, let me ask you this, though, before we close, and this is no right or wrong. This is just how you feel. Do you feel that this situation was handled properly by Astronomer?
I am not certain how exactly it was handled. I did do a quick search, and there was some conflicting information about whether statements made were actually made by the company or whether it was AI generated or whether
Yeah.
it was just allegedly,
Mhm.
you know, those statements were made. So I can't say with any certainty exactly how they handled it and whether it was fitting. But if you
Understood.
know,
Now that you said AI, I just got an idea. I was like, he was
yeah,
supposed to say, that wasn't me, that was AI generated.
yeah,
Honey, it looks like me, but it's not me.
right, right.
All right,
Yeah,
listen,
and there's a lot of that going on. Like, I've seen businesses, like, lose money over things like that. The CEO is on screen having a conversation like you and I are, and the CEO says, "Hey, I need you to make this bank transfer. This is a new product. Like, don't say anything to anyone." Turns out it was AI, and they're out the money, right? So
yeah.
you have to be careful about what you believe is fact,
Hmm.
if you don't have an ability to vet it out.
Man, it's a time that we're living in.
Yes.
Looking ahead. Let's end
Mhm.
in a positive note. What do you see as the biggest emerging challenge for HR professionals in maintaining a corporate reputation and managing employee conduct in an increasingly transparent and interconnected world, Cheryl?
Well, the transparency and the interconnectedness is definitely a fact, right? And it's only getting more and more that way. And like we are just talking about, AI becomes more complicated as well because you have all these other forces that may be a part of it. It's still hard to narrow down one thing. I want to go back to like alignment of actions and words, you know, but for HR, I would say you can't just be on top of it. You have to be ahead of it, right?
Mm,
You can't just be on top of it. You can't just be on cutting edge. You have to be ahead of the edge because you have to be prepared yourself as an HR professional, but prepare your organization and the company's leadership for what's coming. So it means staying ahead of whatever is going on through preparation and planning, mitigating risk and damage by, again, having clear company values, communicating the expectations, the consequences, administering your policies fairly to everyone, having the disaster recovery preparedness and crisis management plan in place, communicating and reiterating and reinforcing values to the workforce, top to bottom. But it's particularly difficult because HR is so broad and encompassing that it does take a lot of effort to stay ahead of everything that's going on, right? If you're going to be cutting edge in compensation and cutting edge in benefits and cutting edge in succession planning, like there's a lot going on, a lot of moving parts. So it's important as HR professionals to maintain your health, right? Your physical health, your emotional health, just taking care of yourself so that you're able to take care of the people and to take care of your company, their social media presence, but also the leadership team, making sure they are fully prepared and informed to handle the challenges.
Well said, well said, well said. Well, Sheryl, in the last 20 years, you've seen a lot of changes. What advice, as we close, would you give to young and upcoming HR professionals entering the field today? What advice would you offer about navigating the complexities of human resources?
I'm glad you said the word complexities because HR is an increasingly complex arena. It is ever evolving. I mean, if you think about it, HR includes recruitment, benefits, compensation, compliance, culture, the employee life cycle, training and development, succession planning, employee relations, right? The day-to-day issues that come up, workforce planning, preparing for, to meet the challenges of the business needs, right? Employee engagement,
Mm,
performance management, HR information systems, metrics, analyses, and like just so much more. It's a lot. So I would say to an HR professional, a new and even seasoned, to remember it's a business, right? And the best way to support that business is to learn and understand the business that you're in, so that you understand what and who you're supporting. And then ensure that the policies and the culture supports that business, the brand that the company wants to have, making sure that mission, vision, and values are actually being lived out, right? And using the surveys and the assessments and not being a, what did you call it?
an
Ask
ask,
hole,
ask hole.
right? Using the surveys and the assessments, exit and stay interviews, focus groups to gather information so that you know that your organization, where your organization has opportunities to improve and to celebrate the successes where you're hitting the mark. And build relationships with all stakeholders, right? You can't just, connect with your top leadership and not be in touch with your line workers or vice versa. You actually have to, build relationships with all your stakeholders. And again, don't plan ahead and stay ahead. Not on top of, but ahead by connecting with others and staying abreast of the landscape. Things are really moving fast.
Man, Sheryl, thank you so much for your perspective. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your professionalism, and thank you for so much knowledge. You're a walking encyclopedia, man.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate
And we
your
want to have
trusting
you
me to
back.
share
We want to have
share
you back.
information. Absolutely. I'll be happy to.
Absolutely. So where can the tribe find you if they need you or has an opportunity to plug your business and what you do? Where is that? Where can they find you?
So I'm just going to give email for now,
Okay.
Sheryl J LaPlace.phr. So Sheryl.J.LaPlace, LAPLACE, .phr@gmail.com. I mentioned to you, I'm currently on a small sabbatical, but I did take some time out for you because I knew this was important and it's a trending topic.
Thank
HR
you.
is trending. So I did want to take that time out for you. But if your listeners want to reach out, they can reach me by email for now.
Fantastic. Sheryl LaPlace, ladies and gentlemen. Sheryl, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you so much, and we can't wait to do it again. Again. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this episode of CX in the Morning, Customer Experience in the Morning, where on every single CX in the Morning, I bless you with customer service tips, customer experience tricks, and I leave you with gems like Sheryl have just blessed us with a lot of gems. And by gems, we mean actionable takeaways that you can implement at the speed of now. Immediately after this broadcast, you can take what you've learned, share it with your team, making your team and your business better. Thanks again, Sheryl.
Thank you. Have a good one.